Does Canada and the United States have a plan to get rid of all cash? The answer is yes, but the answer actually goes a lot deeper than that, and the plans for the future and how can it affect you, your family, and your job. That's what we're going to be getting into today. So let's just dive right in, you guys. So in Canada and United States are joined at the hip. We try to follow what's happening in North America all the time. Canada is the first country in the developed world to be instituting a new digital ID. So this digital ID is going to be partially, for now, taking over what passports are. Notice what it says about a digital credential. Please go to canada.ca to read more about it. But it says, with more of our interactions taking place online, the need for an efficient, interconnected, and secure digital services is growing. Well, we can agree with that. Canadians expect easy, secure, and trusted access to digital services. Yes, they want to be able to control, more importantly, who can't access their digital information, correct? Digital credentials offer Canadians the ability to confirm their identity during service transactions. So that is where we're starting to get into a little bit of like question mark, that little weird feeling you have in your stomach. The question all boils down to, should you have to report to the government every single time you buy something at the dollar store or every piece of food item that you buy? Should every transaction that you do be put on a ledger under your name and sent back to the government for analysis? Should that actually be happening? Now, if you go on, it will explain what digital credentials are. And it does say that digital credentials are optional, right? That they will be voluntary, which is good. Other forms of physical documents like driver's license or passports will still be used. So that is good. But remember, what they always say is that there's nothing as permanent in the world as a temporary government program. So you have to remember that, okay? So it's most likely it's not going to be voluntary for long. How does it work? Digital credentials would let people and businesses access services online without having to go to a location in person or send information through the mail. Like, guys, we do this all today, right? So you have to be asking yourself, what is the need for that? Now, if you also go to the Bank of Canada, the Bank of Canada also talks about the central bank digital currency, and then we're going to be talking about the US one as well. In Canada, they're saying that central bank digital currency, that they're building the capability to issue a digital version of the dollar. Why would they spend hundreds of millions of dollars doing this, you guys, if they had no plan of actually rolling it out that Canadians can trust and rely on? So this is where people are starting to get a little bit confused. Honestly, like trying to explain to my mom is really tough, okay? But even to my friends, okay? So let's take a little bit of a journey. If we go back in time far enough, money always had to be the same, like something of value. So typically, for thousands of years, it was pieces of gold, okay? So they would take that gold and they would weigh that gold, and this was money, international money. You can go anywhere in the world and use it. If we go back just 100 years ago, it was the British people who were running the entire world. And you get on a boat in London, go all the way to India, come off with a gold coin, which was the British sovereign, like about a bit less than a quarter of an ounce, and it was as good as gold. It was money. That expression, good as gold. So once we fast forward a little bit, gold is very heavy, weighs in your pockets, and that was a pain in the butt. So what did we do after that? We developed something like this, a thin little piece of paper, very easy to put in your pocket. But this little piece of paper, $1, this is a real bill, and it's from 1928. So if you see on the top there, it says silver certificate, because this one piece of paper, $1, was worth 1 ounce of silver, 1 solid ounce of silver. This was 1 silver certificate. Notice what it says on the bottom, 1 silver dollar payable to the bearer on demand. So at any time, the whole reason that people were all back then going, well, this is money. Okay, this had value. What is a piece of paper? I read my news on a piece of paper. And the only reason that people were willing to use this as currency is because it said it had some metal backing it up. Payable to the bearer on demand, at any moment, he could go to the bank, take this bill, pass it to the teller, and she would have to hand him a solid piece, 1 ounce of silver back. That was money. Now we're going to fast forward that to today. Now, all of a sudden, it doesn't say payable to the bearer on demand anymore. Now it's called fiat, F-I-A-T, if you want to go look that up, based on faith. So we just have faith in the government that they would essentially give us our money back. This is where back then, this was currency and money, right? Because it was backed up by this silver promise. Today, when we go look at a regular bill from today, this bill isn't backed up by any money. Okay. So that bill, what is it backed up by? Now it's just currency. It's not really money. But we, myself included, mix those words up because my whole life I just always called it money. But we have to drill down a little bit more. It is not money anymore. Now it's just currency. It's just a piece of paper. So you have to ask yourself, what is it about this one bill right here, which is a real bill? Okay. This is a green piece of paper, paper with green ink on it. This is a real bill today. But do you notice it? Does it say anything about silver on it? Absolutely not. That's a real bill. But this bill is also green ink on paper. But notice it says copy. It's a Hollywood bill. So, this is still green ink on paper. But if we take other green ink and rearrange it on another piece of paper, this is from the Bank of Zimbabwe. I now officially am a billionaire. And they had bills that were up to $100 trillion. And this would not even buy you a coffee and you would be a billionaire. So you have to ask yourself, is it money or is it currency? Big, big difference. I'm going to show you one last thing about currency that I think is very, very fun. My father, German background, he had these in his wallet. This is going back like 100 years. This is a valley of Gosso or something like that in Germany. And these pieces of paper were emergency money. Famous, in the 30s, the Weimar Republic collapsed. And if you notice on the back, it has a date. And this is important for you to see. 1920, December 31st. Yeah, I know in English, you could still see this. So this was emergency money. So each town, when the currency of their country collapsed, they had to print these little bills. These bills were now used as currency. Now, number one, they were only to be used like in the Gosso Valley. So they were very, very local. This is important. We're going to be talking about this later. Very local. You could only spend it where the government said you could spend it. Gosso Valley. Then they had the date on the back. The date on the back would tell you that it would expire by a certain date. You had to use it by a certain time. Isn't that important? And this bill would only be accepted at certain places. And the government would tell you what you could buy with it. So remember, they controlled what you did buy, the area that you bought it, and put a timer on it. So this was that type of money. This is 100 years ago, you guys. 100 years ago. So let's go forward. This is exactly what we're talking about, central bank digital currencies. It would be like cash, but the added benefit of being able to be used online. Come on, guys. We use our MasterCards online all the time anyway. Well, changing times, we need cash less often. Well, I know that, but that's why I use my credit card. So why are you doing this, right? The day may come when Canadians no longer readily use cash. Well, we majority use our credit cards now anyway, right? And so that might be the tipping point when they bring that in. Holy Mackinac. So it's important for you guys to know that back in the day, you guys know I've been mining Bitcoin and Ethereum for several years now. But if you take a look at Ethereum particularly, Ethereum is known for something called smart contracts. Do you see it on the back? Smart contracts. So it's conditional money. So imagine when you buy a house. You guys know that I'm a real estate broker. If you have a house in the center, who do you need? Obviously, you have a buyer and a seller, but they both have their own real estate agents, their own lawyers, their own banking system. And all these people are intermediaries, and there's a government system and a ledger that they have to go through. So remember, you have all these middle people, different agents, different brokerages, different lawyers, different banks getting their mortgages approved, and the government in the center. That's a lot of people. And all of those people are in the center to make sure that the transaction happens legally and to everybody's best interests, because you're moving such large sums of money back and forth. We have to make sure it's done right. What happens if they could come up with a computer system, a computer program that nothing would happen unless all of the checks balanced? Let's take an example. Buyer, seller, still, house in the middle, and you have to buy it. You'd set up this computer program that would say to the seller, you have to send in your deed. Don't worry, we will not send it to the buyer unless all the other things happen. So you would have to send in the deed. They would have to send in the money to a trusted intermediary, that program. Then the government would have to send in something stating that they've swapped it on the ledger. And if all of those things go to that trusted third-party software, then it will do the exchange all automatically. Oh my goodness. So think of this. You could remove 11 or something intermediaries out of the center of this transaction. Think of how much cheaper, how much faster, how much safer it would be. Less dodgy stuff happening around. Amazing, right? Now, it's amazing in that, but now there's going to be millions of people out of work. Maybe not so amazing. So it really depends what side you're on. But when it comes to smart contracts, what you will be talking about or hearing in the news, programmable money. So if you can control the food, you control the people, but if you can control the money, you then control the world. And so remember that when we're going down this road, okay, it's not political. What I'm talking about is not political. It's not left, not right. As sure as the sun will rise the next day, we're going to have another government come in and another agenda. And even if it's the same government, they're going to change their agendas all the time. So it's not about the agenda. We're not talking politics here. We're just talking about what it is. There's going to be some massive, insane benefits of central bank digital currencies. Like what? Well, if you have fraudulent IDs, do you think that you can claim 100 welfare checks like they do today? No, they would not be able to do that. Would they be able to cheat on their taxes? Would they be able to work for cash? Maybe some people like that, some people don't. A lot of more things has to be on the up and up, okay? So there's benefits. Then the government doesn't have to print a lot of cash. There's no paper money going around, no coins anymore. Win, win, win. What are the downsides? The downsides really are the potential to abuse the power. So let's just say the majority of the governments today in the Western world are usually left-leaning. If we take that today, they generally have some things around climate these days that they're really trying to push. So with today, if we're just taking Netherlands, Germany, England, France, Canada, United States, doesn't matter what, okay? They could say your money, you're only eligible to buy one steak per week. You're only eligible to have 40 liters of gas per week, 10 gallons. You're only allowed to whatever. It doesn't matter. Whatever your flavor of the day is. Maybe you're only allowed to have so much food. You know, according to the 15-minute cities, they want to limit up to 2,500 calories per person. So it really depends what it is. But as sure as the sun will rise, it's going to be another government. And so the next time they're going to come out with their new agenda and say, okay, now you're not allowed to buy a car or you're not allowed to buy a horse. I don't know, whatever it is that day. The thing is that you lose control of what you're able to buy. Limits, okay? Limit your alcohol, your cigarettes, your gambling, or maybe they're going to say you can't go to the doctor as much or whatever their flavor is. Do you think that's right? Right? And that is the power that you kind of give up. There's no anonymity anymore. There's no way that you can take a dollar, go down to the store and buy something without the government okaying you buying that. So that's the part that kind of gets a little bit funky and a little bit weird. So do you think that this is going to happen? All right, so let's take a look. Go online and look up CBDCtracker.org. These are the countries that are looking into it. You can see that there's some that are launched, proof of concept research, and how many canceled? We only see one country that canceled it. So Canada here says it's in the pilot program. The United States, though, says it's in the research phase. This is incorrect. I guess it's a bit behind. It's already started up. The United Kingdom, very popular. It's on the news all the time. Their new prime minister loves this idea, and he's pushing it. Also, if you go to this other website, Atlantic Council, you can go check here. You can see all these countries that are either piloting it or launching it or in development. If we go down, you want to know how fast this is actually happening. Just notice this portion right here. So this is development, pilot, or launch, okay? It's not just the research phase. So we're sitting at like 45% here, 2021. December 2022, look at where we are here. We're at 55%. It is coming. More and more and more countries are going to be throwing this in there. So the United States are running something called Fed Now. So the Federal Reserve is confirming that in July, they're going to do their full launch of Fed Now instant payment service. This is very different than credit cards. And this is the digital money that will be competing with Bitcoin and Ethereum. So that comes into my second point. Do you really believe that any country that has their own cryptocurrency called Fed Coin, America Coin, Canada Coin, whatever it's going to be, do you think that a country that has their own central bank digital currency will possibly allow Bitcoin and Ethereum to continue? Because in their constitutions, it is said that the government has the sole ability to create money. The moment that they can create a central bank digital currency to compete with Bitcoin and Ethereum, I don't know how those countries will possibly even allow it. I don't know. But it may not start right away, but the battle will be on for sure. I don't know how the countries that have digital currency could allow a competing currency where everyone can avoid paying taxes. If that happened, the country would collapse. No taxes, the whole country goes down. So the United States has confirmed in July is going to be the launch date for this. And you can go check out their new service, Fed Now. So it's important for you to know that this is coming. A lot of countries are doing this. In addition to that, they're doing these district planning. But I have to laugh a little bit when I see district planning, because do you remember that movie Hunger Games where she would be like, like they're talking about the districts that you're in. I find that really funny. Maybe you don't find it funny. This is the 15-minute cities. And so this is in a city called Edmonton. It's in Alberta, Canada. We also know that there's other areas, even in Toronto where I am, there is an area called Mississauga that really loves this idea. What is a district? This is where you will send your tribute once per year. Anyway, so these 15-minute cities, you can go read about it. Of course, the World Economic Forum and Club of Rome, they love this stuff. So what it basically is telling you is that this is what they want. They want you to have the ability to live within your zone and walk to everything that you need. Beautiful. How could this be a bad thing? I want to be able to walk to wherever I go. This is great. Okay, but you're only allowed to leave that zone like 100 times a year. If you leave that more than 100 times a year, now you got to pay $100 every time you leave. Well, that's not cool. And they want to restrict how many calories that you have per day. They want to control that. And they want to do that all through these central bank digital currencies, right? Where you attach your digital ID, like they do in China, to your digital money that is all controlled within the government. And this is what they do in China. I don't know if we should be taking notes from China, you guys, but I don't know. What do you think? Like everything in life, right? There is no just black and white. Unfortunately, when we get older, there's a lot of shades of gray in the middle. And now we have to assume a bunch of benefits, and a bunch of negatives on both sides of the aisle. So like I said, CBDC has a lot of benefits on its side for fraud and so forth, but it also has a lot of negatives. Today in the cash system, massive fraud everywhere. Everybody's lying and stealing, but there's a lot of benefits to cash too. Anonymity, being able to be radically free, to be able to buy whatever I want, drive wherever I want, eat whatever I want. But remember, this is not political. These are the things that you have to give up in order for that ease. And so is that okay? I don't know. I would love to know what you think about this. What do you think about 15-minute cities? What do you think about a digital ID? What do you think about having the government being able to track everything? Now, I know that the statement always comes up. Well, if you have nothing to hide, then why do you care? Well, I don't know. Like, I feel funny just handing over my grocery receipts to the government and asking if it's okay. And everything that I buy at the store, are these pants okay? Is it okay that I buy a mattress for my home? Like, I don't have anything to hide. I do everything legally, but I just feel kind of gross in the bottom of my stomach. Do you feel that way too? I'd love to know in the comments. Please, guys, if this helps you at all, please consider subscribing, hit that notification bell, tell your friends about it. We really appreciate it.